Well, hello and welcome back to the RevOpsCharlie YouTube channel. And today I'm really excited because we've got another edition of the Demo Day series where I get the opportunity to speak to leaders at revenue tech vendors, and we explore the world that they exist in, the customers that they're selling into, and importantly, how they solve the problems for you as the viewer, as a revenue leader at a SaaS organization. And today, I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome Kevin Dixon to the channel. Kevin is the founder of Boxxstep, and we're going to be talking about all things buyer enablement. So Kevin, welcome to the channel.
Thanks, Charlie. Good to catch up with you again.
Fantastic. Kevin and I connected a few weeks back over some mutual posts on buyer enablement on LinkedIn. And it's been great to get to know Kevin and know the platform that he's providing into their customers. So perhaps for those that are not familiar with Boxxstep or even really the concept of buyer enablement, perhaps you'd like to give a little bit of background into what the company does and that category of buyer enablement.
Yeah, I think you and I had this conversation a couple of weeks ago, and I said, I don't believe that technology is buyer enablement. It's a philosophy, it's a mindset, it's a strategy. There are just pieces like us and others that feed into helping achieve that. And so when we started the business, we didn't start 6-7 years ago. It wasn't starting it because we want to enable buyers. It was a different mindset, is that there was an initial need. So my background is complex and enterprise sales. I read global sales teams in high-tech, high-value sales. And one of the things that I really wanted to address is the sort of inadequacies of CRM. Let's be brutal about it. CRM, I've used the big CRMs, but I won't be specific about them. And most of the time, they didn't really help us in terms of managing our accounts. And one of the fundamentals we used to do was use things like PowerPoint to map out, who's who in an organization we're selling to or have already sold to. And then when the whole buyer enablement thing came out, when Gartner triggered it off, I started thinking about saying, well, buyer enablement, okay. Before you can enable your buyers, you've got to know who they are. And really, when you start to look at how CRM helps, CRM doesn't, because it's just a string of data, contact information in there, and it doesn't really help you to understand who and what. So that's really when we started saying, okay, let's take this fundamental basic thing we used in terms of PowerPoint account mapping and start to advance that digitally, make it more powerful, more useful, rather than this static slide set, and then start relating it to buyer enablement. And since we did that, buyer enablement's gone through the roof. A lot of people talking about it now. I think most people are just using it as the sort of latest buzzword to just do sales in a different way. And one of the things I found refreshing in our conversation is you were probably one of the first people I come across is actually trying to take it to its core and say, this is not just another tactic for selling. This is something that you sort of do differently in terms of guiding people and helping people to buy. So hopefully that sort of gives you a bit of background on how we started.
Yeah, I love the idea that buyer enablement is a philosophy, not a software category. And as a revenue leader, driving on your way into work or sitting at your home office, it's like, are you thinking 100% about how do I help my sellers to sell, or alternatively, how do I help my buyers to buy? Because ultimately, that's what we're trying to do. We've got to figure out how do we help our buyers to buy. And sales enablement and helping your sellers to enable their buyers is one of those lenses, but it's really just a subsegment of the core, which is how do I help my buyers to buy more easily from us.
At the end of it, you want the customer to make a decision, and you want them to make a decision in favor of you. So at the moment, the traditional ways of trying to achieve that through all the different sales process, sales methodologies and strategies, it's not working. sale times are taking a lot longer. No decision outcomes are much higher. So people have got to step back and rethink, because if we keep doing the same crap that got us into this problem, nothing, it's just going to get worse. And there is a window of opportunity for the early innovators to really change the mindset. And it isn't just the organization, it isn't just the sales team, it's an organizational mindset.
Yeah, I have a graphic next to me that I always keep on the wall, which is a well-used Gartner statistic that shows that buyers spend only 17% of their buying process in front of vendor sales teams. And if you assume that they are speaking to 3 vendors, then that means only 5 to 6% of your their time is spent in front of your salespeople. Interestingly, 55% or so of their buying process is spent doing independent research, either online or offline. And so for me, even coming from a 25-year heritage as an enterprise sales person and sales leader, you can't get away from the fact that it doesn't matter how much you love selling or how much you enable your salespeople. If they're not in front of your customers, they're not doing it. They can't do anything. So you have to look at it from that other lens of looking in from the buyer, and like, how do you help them in those times when they're not in front of your vendor salespeople? And I think this has become ever more important in the last sort of 4 or 5 years. I think you've experienced that buying groups are getting bigger, they're more distributed, there's just more people involved, and it's just ever harder to have one decision maker that you can build a relationship with.
I think it's rare, if never, that there's one decision maker. There might be one decision maker, but there isn't one person that leads to that decision. Because when you think about decision maker, the decision maker is ultimately somebody who says, I own the budget for this, I'm going to sign off the approval of that expenditure. But that decision maker, more often than not, is going to talk to 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 different people in their organization. Say, everyone happy with this? Good thing to do? Yeah, we're all good. Let's do it. I'll sign it off. Now, sellers and sales leadership and organizations, we've got to get to the economic buyer. We've got to get to the decision maker. We've got to get exec level. I think the research that came out that said something about 58% of deals are signed off without anybody in that top layer really talking to a seller or a seller's organization. So we're deluded if we think we're going to get the time. Now, if you're doing a bit of work that is massively transformational for a business, then of course these people are going to get involved. If you're just another small cog in the wheel of technologies or whatever it is that you're selling to that business, they really don't care about us. They leave it to their lieutenants to really do the evaluation, kick the tires, make sure it's all good, make sure everyone's on board, and then say, okay, we're good to go. And so I think people have to sell high, wide, and deep now. And we have this discussion all the time, the term multi-threading. And people say, well, where do I start? Do I start at the top, start at the bottom? And top down, middle out, bottom up. You've got to do it all, because you don't know where the influence is. And I use the term that influence is more powerful than authority. And it's true in today's. You might get someone that is, in terms of the hierarchy of an org chart, is low down, but they're so trusted in their organization for their thinking and decision making that everybody sort of really comes to them and say, okay, let's be guided by this individual. So just focusing on the top, ignoring everybody else, because everybody has a say. Everybody has a say. The size of the say and the magnitude of the say, of course, that varies. But going back to that sort of 17%, I think it's easy. That stat came out some time ago. I'd love to know what it is today, because it might be more, it might be less. But when people say if they're typically dealing with 3 and divide out 5, but so the key thing is if there is that small amount of time available, how do you get more of it? And you don't get more of it by just turning into a more stereotypical salesperson. You get more of it by helping them do stuff that they don't understand how to do. And that isn't about choosing you or your product. It's about saying, how do we get to a change decision? How do we know it's the right time to do it? And then off the back of that, at the end of it, they're hopefully going to be gravitating towards you because you were their trusted person through this sort of change process.
Mm. Yeah, I've just finished reading last night a fairly recently published book called The Innovative Seller by Jake Dunlap in the US, and talking about how AI and more customer-centric sort of buying processes are coming to the fore. And at the end, he makes the case that because buyers have got access to so much information from their peers, from colleagues, from publicly available sources, then the bar just continues to go up and up and up for what it means to be a valuable salesperson. To get a demo, to get pricing, to get details of the product, they don't need you for that anymore. They really need business acumen, advice, experience, connections. And if you can position yourself as that valuable seller, then you've got something that is, worth that buyer spending their time engaging with and expanding that 6 or 7% of the time they're spending with you. It would be useful for us to understand a little bit about your ideal customer profile. So when we talk about sales enablement and buyer enablement, often a lot in our world, we gravitate towards the tech industry. But can you give us a bit of an insight into the types of companies that are really focusing on buyer enablement?
Sure. In simple terms, you could break selling down into two types of sales, transactional sale or complex sale. Transactional, pretty much as it sounds, it's done in a pretty simple way. It might be 1, 2, 3 people involved. The sales cycle might be short. It might be very sort of price centric, highly commoditized, highly competitive. And complex sales is really when you start to talk about sales cycles that might be 3 months plus, involve quite a wide range of functional personas in the buying committee. And it's the latter part. It is that sort of complexity when you start to say, okay, I'm having to engage a wide group of people in an account and an opportunity to understand, how I move towards winning the deal. And so when we start thinking about sectors, of course, SaaS market or technology market, they tend to be the early adopters. But we've got customers from media, from construction, from engineering, because they recognize that it's become more difficult for them to sell and they have to approach how they manage these customer relationships, these customer accounts and opportunities differently. And how they make sure that they know what they need to know, and so they can make the right steps in terms of moving the needle in their favor. So when it starts to come an ICP, ironically, what we're about is helping people manage complexity of big buying decision groups. But I don't tend to try and focus on trying to sell to really big organizations because the cost of sale becomes huge, because it could be a year. I might have to engage 20, 25 people. And especially if they're looking at 40 licenses or something like that, if they're looking for hundreds, and of course I'll do that. But we tend to sort of focus anything up to sort of 500,000 people and the early adopter markets, like the high-tech SaaS markets, are the primary goals. But it doesn't mean we exclude anyone else. If people are having engaged with a broad group of people in a sale and it's multiple months, if not a year or two, then that's something that Boxxstep helps the seller team with.
Excellent. So it's really around that complexity of the sale that drives that customer profile. And then within the organizations that you're selling into, who's part of your buying group? Who are the core champions that are bringing this in, and who are on the peripheral, the influencers?
Yeah, titles constantly changing, but so historically, a lot of the first touch points would be the CRO, or SVP sales, EVP sales, whatever it is, whoever's got the sales leadership responsibility nationally, globally, whatever. But we do get involved with RevOps. We do get involved with sales ops, sales enablement, sales effectiveness. And then there are touch points from the CIO's office, because it might be that the CRM manager reports into that organization. So the buying group, depending on how many salespeople are involved and the size of the organization, can vary from I would say 6 to 12, because often, the larger an organization, you get a bunch of salespeople become part of that buying committee. Trusted salespeople who, look, we value your opinion. You're a high-performing salesperson, someone that's been here a long time, or somebody that we value what you do because you've proven it over the years that you understand our market and our customers, and they get involved in the process. So yeah, it can vary. If someone's buying, ironically, we're not a high-value product or high-cost product. Sorry, we are a high value, but value in terms of what it delivers. You could have 5-6 people involved when someone's buying 10 licenses, because the interest in and the impact of what we do, is going to be felt across an organization. And we try not, because we take a philosophy that selling's a team sport. And rarely in what we do is it just, us, the salespeople, that engage with the customer and close the deal. We rely on a bunch of other people who are involved on helping us, contributing, engaging with the customers. We're seeing more and more seller teams map out different members of their team to engage with different members of the customer's team when the deal's of a certain size. So, we try and say, if you've got people in consulting, technical support, project delivery that might be involved or supporting you, we have licenses that make it cost effective for them to be part of the overall management scheme of the accounts and opportunities.
You mentioned there about sellers themselves often being part of the process, and one of the challenges that we often see in revenue tech platforms is lack of adoption, because it's been sponsored in by someone at the top who wants data, wants to manage, wants to keep insight on what's going on, but it's not necessarily seen as delivering value to the people that are supposed to use it. And if they don't use it, then no one up the top gets the value. And so when you look at sales teams that are using the platform, do you see a sort of distribution that top performers are using it for a specific reason, middle performers, bottom performers aren't engaging? How do you see that play out in your accounts?
It's a good question, Charlie, and I think it varies. Ironically, when you start to try and tell top performers that here's a way of doing things better, you can get resistance, but because they go, hey, I'm a top performer for a reason. And sometimes it's not.
Yeah, things seem to be going all right so far.
Well, yeah, but the issue is that, part of our platform is a sales performance feedback from the buyers. And about 1/3% of the times deals were won despite the salesperson. So, they could be strutting around saying, hey, I'm top performer, but guess what? They didn't do a great job, but they still won the deal. So top performers, we've had some really good top performers, and some of our customers come to say, do you know what? Sometimes it just gives them a reminder, and it helps them focus on the gaps and what they're doing, and it gives them a better way of plotting, their steps and their strategy in an account. But in essence, we can help anyone. And what I mean is, if a lot of the time is we get people come to us and say, 4 months in of using it, we can see why, too many of our deals are moving to the right in the forecast. We just didn't know enough about the people involved. We've got forecasted and committed deals, and then when they're looking at it, we go, blimey, we only really engage properly and understand 2 people, and it's 500K ARR deal. And you're like, well, it's never going to happen that way. I think what we do is put a spotlight on the gaps in who and what they know and who and what they need to know to get a deal done. But one of the problems, Charlie, is the starting point. The starting point of really understanding forget the ICP, because I know that's important, but that's been done to death. What is each seller team's ideal decision-making team? And not ideal from us, the seller's perspective, but an ideal one to make sure the deal happens and that we engage properly. So how often do we as sellers say, okay, let's look at all these deals we've won, because it's easier to do it then, and say, who were the functional buyer personas that were involved in that decision-making process? And sure, it might take some reaching out to some of your trusted people, say, look, who got involved, what were the job roles, and blah, blah, blah. And then when you start to understand, you start to go, okay, that list is 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 people. I think Gong did a study recently, said there's 20 different buying roles involved in a B2B buying decision these days. So this is research from big sales tech companies. So when you start to create that and you start to say, okay, Now let's look at our forecasted and committed deals and say, have we engaged with all these people? If we're looking to close that next month, have we engaged with procurement, with legal, with compliance, with these things that most sellers push to the back because they go, that's our least comfortable conversation. Yes, we've gone, we've focused on the sellers, the people, the operational people that are going to benefit from this, but not all the others that have got to safeguard the business by saying we're plugging a piece of technology. But we want to make sure that fits in with what, the rest of our IT infrastructure, the rules and regs that we have as an organization. So understanding who's involved and then tracking against it and saying, right, well, I wouldn't be forecasting committing to that deal until you've covered all four corners of this buying group, because they're looking to make a collective yes. And the reason we see so many no decisions is because there isn't a collective yes. There's a bunch of abstainers and people that disagree, or they're not really for change. So the more we start to identify who is typically involved in each of our proposition levels and then tracking whether or not we've engaged them, that's going to really help in terms of our forecasting capability.
Yeah. And I always think, back to my time as an individual contributor, if you could have said to me, here's a magic pill, if you take this pill, you will hit your target and you will get into the accelerators, which is where most of your commission is going to be earned, I'd be taking that pill off you every single day. Like, that is what people are focused on in a sales role, or should be. And too often with some of this revenue tech, they can't make that connection between why am I using that? So we've talked a lot about, CRM and so many failed CRM implementations because leaders have not made the connection or made the case to their salespeople why you putting in your call notes and your meeting updates will help you hit target. People don't see that. They see that it's a benefit for the leadership and for RevOps and reporting, not for themselves.
Yep. One of the things I look at is in these difficult times, I see a big mistake by a lot of sales leaders. They go, okay, business is tough. We're not closing the numbers we want. Right, we need to do more prospecting. We need more prospects. We need a bigger pipeline. And so they just spend, if you look at so much sales tech, it is top of the funnel. The problem is so many deals, you work really hard to get a prospect and then mid to bottom funnel, you fail. Because you don't engage with everybody. You don't understand everybody. You don't help everybody. So are you likely to get a collective yes? No. So if we work hard to get a prospect, then when we get to middle bottom funnel, that's really where Boxxstep comes into its own. We're middle bottom funnel. And that's where we add value, because you worked hard, get it over the line. Don't fail at that point. Don't end up with and no decision outcome is a loss, whichever way you look at it. People don't like to admit that, but it is. Yeah. They blame the customer. Oh, they couldn't make their minds up there.
If you're up for it, Kevin, it'd be great to share your screen and maybe look at a key use case that demonstrates that experience from an account executive's perspective.
Sure, absolutely. So what I'm going to do today, as we agreed, Charlie, I'm just going to focus on one aspect. So Boxxstep's broken down into three core elements of the buying group, customers' buying group. It starts off with relationship stakeholder mapping, which is who do you know, what do you know about them, what's the dynamics between them, what's the key drivers for change. And then we move, so that's the knowledge part. Then we move to the help. And how do you help people through their customer buying decision? And for that, we use our version of mutual action plans, which we call outcome enablement plans. And at the end of it, an organization is going to make a decision. You've won it, you lost it, or they choose to do nothing. Then we have sales performance, win-loss analysis feedback. So that's how do we learn from those buying engagements? All too often we do sort of analyze why we lost a deal internally, and that's never really, it's just a brainstorming session. So, but today, the foundation of any good buyer enablement practice is what do you know about the different people involved? And there was a time when relationship mapping, and I was one of the people that said it, the relationship stakeholder mapping was a nice to have. But that was before this buying group became so big. And, that's why the term opportunity management has been around a long time. Equally important is people management. And that's what we're going to look at now.
Okay, I can see your screen. Perfect.
Lovely. So what's happened here is that I have exported an opportunity from Salesforce, Dynamics, Sugar, or you can still, we don't have to be connected to CRM. We have a bunch of customers that have obscure CRMs that still want the benefit, so they run it independently. So here what's happened, these contacts have been synchronized from an opportunity and an account. And the first thing I want to talk about is we are not the only stakeholder relationship mapping platform out there. However, we do it differently. The typical stakeholder mapping company is very one-dimensional. They will look at something from an account level. An account level says, okay, the general position, general things about a user. Yes, we do that, but we do it two-dimensionally. So we do it at an account level and at an individual opportunity level. Why do we do that? Is because a lot of our sales customers, they have multiple deals, opportunities going on with each of their customers. And the buying group for each of those is different. So we have to look at it at an opportunity level, and all that information is also fed up to an account level. So as I said, we'll just focus on the high level here. Now, the whole purpose of the different relationship stakeholder maps we have is to give you a visualization that immediately gives you an understanding of your position, provides you with some clarity about where you stand, what you might need to do, what your next steps might need to be, and who with whom. And when you're working in these teams with your colleagues, doing deal reviews, strategy sessions around one of these relationship maps can be really helpful. So you can see here a bunch of different colors and icons. And unlike some of the others, we wanted to make the icons really simple to understand. So the sales brain looks at it and completely understands straight away without having to refer to an index to understand something about this individual. So what we have here is the top part is what I think my relationship is with that person. Of course, it's subjective opinion. So you can see, you can just change it. We're going to say, okay, well, we've actually got a good relationship with the CEO here. So straight away now, that top bar, we know that me as the seller, I believe I've got a good relationship with this individual. Then we've got some simple icons here. Once again, very sort of self-explanatory. Star, star player, key play. This sign here, this warning sign is the business problem owner, someone that's trying to solve the problem and lead the problem resolution internally. And then the well-known sales phrase, the champion. And boxing glove, pretty cheesy, I know, but really simple. And if I click that, say, Kevin's our champion, we're going to do a little sanity check, because all too often people would judge a fan as being their champion and could be misguided in their thinking. So we go ahead, yes. Now, and you see that boxing glove has become golden. So they are our champion. Then we've got a bunch of little icons at the bottom, and the role this person plays. And these are customizable terminologies that you can use. The door is how much access I have to that person via face-to-face meetings, Zoom calls, phone calls, whatever it is that's important to you. Something we've never seen anywhere else is that what's this person's position on change? Sales leads to change management, and everybody can be impacted by a changing how they do something, the things they use. So getting an individual opinion on how you think that person's going to be impacted by change can be very helpful, because if they're against change or neutral, then you've got your work cut out and you've got to start focusing on these people a bit more. The cog is what do I believe their opinion is whether or not we're a good solution fit for what they're trying to do to solve their problem. The trophy is who do I believe this person would prefer to win the deal. Sweeping statements like us, we don't think they've got a preference, or they prefer one of the competitors, or we don't know. And then the number is the steps you've got planned with this person to improve your position. So if you look at CRM, it's all about the next steps in the opportunity. We're talking about next steps with each member of this jigsaw puzzle of the buying committee. And what we all can also do is build a profile. Now, shock horror, this is admin. Of course it is, because sellers don't like admin. I'm too busy selling to be doing this. That's what their views are in CRM. What we're trying to say here is if you truly want to enable a buying committee to make a collective yes decision in your favor, you've got to understand each of them. What is their position on change, the objectives they've got, any challenges they face, criteria that's important to them, concerns they have relating to this individual buying decision. So once you build that up, we can display it in a really easy, reviewable way for you, your management, the colleagues that are helping you on this particular deal. So I mentioned earlier about the ideal decision-making team, and you can create those for each proposition. Here, we're tracking about, pretty straightforward one here, but we haven't engaged with legal. So there's the gap in what we need to do. So let me also, we don't like to think of ourselves as a sales methodology company, because we're not. We're very vanilla. And what do I mean by vanilla? Well, we enable you to capture the fundamentals that nearly always don't exist within CRM, or if they do exist in partiality, they tend to be in the free text box that is about 4 pages long and nobody can review. Here we're trying to say, okay, what are the problems you're trying to solve for that customer? Why do they need to change? Why now? What outcomes do they want to achieve? The needs, the fundamentals that we all know, Charlie. And then if I just show you a few of the other views, because this is just a basic view on reporting line. We can look at politics. Politics is prevalent in pretty much every account. And it's going to be a little bit slow here because the internet speed between us is pretty slow. And what we have is a capability to display whether individual members of this buying group are allies, one's influencing the other, or individuals are in conflict. And conflict's a heavy-duty word. It might mean they just disagree around the strategy or direction of the business. But we're going to say that these people are individuals. Point and click, the connector is made, and we can now see that they're allies. And there's also this little solid speech bubble there where you can add an annotation about why conflict exists or why people are influencing. So you get visualization more to understand the dynamics and the politics between different members of the buying group. One of the other things, I mentioned this earlier about when we're trying to map individual members of our organization to individual members of the customer's buying group. And this is what we can do in this view. So we get this standard reporting line view. And here what we can do now is we can just say, okay, let's say Chiara is now responsible for managing Ross. So in these little charcoal boxes here are the names of my colleagues that we have assigned to be managing the relationship and helping individual members of this account or this opportunity group. Now we've got some Kanban boards.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Did you want to say something there, Charlie?
No. Please go on.
Okay. Let me just take a quick sip. One of these grids that we try to look at, and when it comes to influence, because I mentioned this earlier on about influence coming from different members of the buying group. So we've got a grid here, left side, low, medium, high influence, and then categorized by type of buyer, an exec buyer, an economic buyer, technical, or user. And pretty straightforward. You're just dragging and dropping where you think that person is. And once again, this sort of visualization is really helpful for you with your management, you with your colleagues when you're trying to work out who's who and where they sit. Buyer stage is another one. This is really where we're trying to say, okay, we're not engaging with all members of the buying group at the same time for every single meeting. We're meeting individual ones at different stages. And different members of the buying group are going to be in different stages of the buying process. And here we've got some customized columns that enable us to visualize that. And in an ideal world, we want to move everybody from left to right and everybody to be either at least neutral or good relationship. So just a couple of other things to show you here. I did say that this is the opportunity level. All of the different opportunities for this account are fed up into an account level. When we look at an account level, we see things slightly differently. And we can map it out as a parent-child organization. But here what you see is a bunch more people here now because we've got different members of buying groups from across different opportunities displayed. I'm just going to zoom in just a little bit so you can start to see. Because what we start to do here, we're capturing more general information about these people. Some of it's the same, like relationship and access, but what level of business support do we get from this individual? How involved are they in the decision-making process or the activities or the engagement for what we do? and how influential are they in what we do? Because just because they're higher up the hierarchy, they may not be even aware of the project or business cases for what you're involved with. So being able to visualize people from a more general level can be very helpful. And the one last view is, how do we focus our time and energies across these different individuals? And it's another one of those sort of Kanban grids where you can put people, say, low power, low interest, high interest. So, and you see the little terminology here, monitor these people, keep these people informed, keep these people satisfied, and manage these people closely. So this really helps when we're doing our planning to understand, where we as a team or I as an individual have got to put most of my efforts, but also be mindful of others that might not need quite so much of my time, but they still need to be managed.
Now that's fantastic, going through those different views. And there's a few things that come to mind in terms of, I guess, my own experience and maybe recommendations for people that are watching. The first is that, creating these things is not a solo endeavor. It's a great opportunity to get the broader deal team involved, whether it's your solution architect, whether it's your lawyer, whether it's the person from deal desk. It's actually, who is it that we know, and is my understanding of where this person is on their journey, correct compared to what the solution architect or the pre-sales engineer thinks. So that's sort of one aspect. The next, and what I found very powerful when I was an individual contributor, is showing that view back to your customer. Maybe not all of those views, but certainly in terms of, this is my understanding of your organization. And you always get immediate feedback. Oh, he doesn't report into them. Oh no, you're missing someone. Whereas if you just ask the question, who's on your buying group? They don't want to tell you, because it's quite you're going to use that. But if you say, this is what I think, then they will typically react and fill in some of the gaps for you. And then the third aspect that I think of is just that AE and manager relationship, that so often a one-to-one becomes a forecast call, because the manager hasn't really got anything to coach around. So they just say, give me the numbers. Whereas some of these views that you've got there make an excellent coaching opportunity for a manager to say, right, walk me through how you see this account, and who's connected, who's involved, and you can really get into problem solving rather than just forecasting.
Yeah, that 3 great points there. Totally agree with them. One of the things we'll say is, one of the difficulties around the way people use CRM today, it's not easy to see, but in most cases, I use this term a lot, most salespeople don't know what they need to know. And most sales leaders don't know that they don't know, because it's not easy for them to see in CRM either. And the dawning of when it pops up in a relationship map and you go, blimey, there's a lot of gaps or grey in there. Wow, who don't we know? What don't we know about them? The brain reacts so much easier to this visualized picture than just the state. We almost sort of go brain dead, autopilot when we go through CRM, and we sort of skim past information because it's loads of text. When you see it visualized, more often than not, it's not inspiring, it's depressing, because people start to realize, they go, oh shit, we are missing some key factors. Yeah. Well, that's a good thing, because if you know about those gaps, then guess what? You can talk about it, rather than doing the autopsy after you've lost the deal. And we go, we just didn't know what we needed to know, and that meant we couldn't do what we needed to do.
Well, Kevin, thank you so much for walking us through that and shining a light on buyer enablement and all of these rapid changes that are happening in the world of B2B sales. What's the best way for people to get in touch with yourself and with Boxxstep if they want to learn more or understand a bit more about how Boxxstep could help them?
Yeah, well, thanks for that. Logical way. LinkedIn's the only real thing I use in terms of business, or my email is just straightforward, kevin@boxxstep.com, and Boxxstep is XX, and you can find that on the internet. The key thing I'd say is, when you see the rest of it, if you've been excited about what you've seen, you'll be even more excited when you see parts 2 and part 3, and how that really is going to help you, not just with the deals now, but how you move forward with other deals and how you start to improve your win rates and reduce your loss rates and no decision rates, and how you, that I even believe we can have an impact on sales churn, because we can get a better insight on what we can do to coach our salespeople individually rather than one size fits all. But I'll leave that for anyone that wants to show further interest.
Fantastic. Well, we'll put your details into the show notes, and thanks very much for joining. And for those of you that have been watching, hope this has been a valuable addition to the Demo Day series, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. So thank you.
Thanks, Charlie.